Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the boss of ferry operator Calmac is forced out by the board. Robbie Drummond steps down with immediate effect. An ageing fleet and delays to new ferries have put a strain on services.
People never used to talk about the ferries. Now, whenever you meet anyone, all they can talk about is the ferries. So there's an anxiety in the island, and then there's the anger that goes with it.
Also on tonight's programme, we speak to a woman who had to bury her dad twice.
It's ridiculous, it's tragic, it shouldn't have happened.
Caroline says she's been left traumatised by having to exhume and rebury her dad after his grave was flooded. Should keeping egg-laying chickens in cages be banned? The government's consulting on it. The rat problem in our towns and cities. Glasgow has the highest number of pest control call-outs.
Coming up in the sport, Dundee manager Tony Docherty says they are not getting carried away as they seek to hold on to a top 6 spot. And the young fan who was hit by a pyrotechnic while watching the Dark Blues has a message for the fans.
Keep supporting Dundee, come home and away, and that's basically it.
Brilliant.
Hello, I'm Laura McKeever. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. It's the biggest ferry operator in the UK, providing a lifeline service for millions of passengers on our west coast. And now, amid a backdrop of what Calmac calls real challenges, the boss is being forced out. Robbie Drummond is stepping down as chief executive with immediate effect. The publicly owned firm says it's making the change to focus on its operational performance. Campaigners say he's the latest scapegoat in Scotland's ferry chaos. With more on this, here's our news correspondent, Jamie McIver.
Calmac's adverts say every journey starts a story. But now the chief executive's story at Calmac is over.
Because of our financial position and the losses we're going to make this year.
Robbie Drummond has been the public face of Calmac through the most difficult period it's ever faced. An ageing fleet has meant more breakdowns, more disruption for communities served by lifeline services.
There's an anxiety in the island, and then there's the anger that goes with it. And I think that give credit to the people in the Brodick office who have done, the Calmac employees who plug away trying to help people. We have nothing but praise really for them because it's an impossible situation.
Nobody from Calmac was speaking today about Mr. Drummond's departure, but in a statement the company said it wanted to focus on improving its operational performance and enhance dialogue with customers and communities. But how many of the big problems are actually Calmac's fault? The main ferries belong to a separate organisation called CMAL. Calmac itself then has to do the best it can with them.
I'm not sure what the situation is that is a problem that Robbie Drummond is being blamed for. Calmac is dealing with an ageing fleet. That's not Robbie Drummond's fault. That's the fault of the Scottish Government.
And Calmac has had no role in the single biggest problem, the 7-year delay to the 2 new ferries, including this one, being built for Arran at Ferguson Marine. The Scottish Government says it wants a focus on improvements.
Of course, it is a matter for the Calmac board, just as, of course, the issues around Ferguson's Marine are the concern of the board there. My message is clear to Calmac, it's clear to CMAL, it's clear to colleagues in Ferguson's Marine and anybody else who's an important stakeholder in relation to ferries. Delivery for our island communities has to be the priority.
The hunt for a permanent successor to Robbie Drummond will now get underway. Calmac should have 6 new ferries within 2 years, and that should mean better and more reliable services. But until then, Robbie Drummond's warning of tough times ahead may still stand. Jamie McIver, reporting Scotland.
Well, our political correspondent David Henderson's here with us now. David, will what happened today actually end up making any difference to those island communities we heard from there?
Well, Laura, the problem for Calmac is that changing their boss might not make much difference at all, because the same difficulties remain regardless of who's in charge. The fundamental challenge for Calmac is they don't have any spare ferries across their network, and of the ferries they do, well, many of them are too old and not reliable enough, and that creates a real problem on the network anytime there's a breakdown. It's led to more repair work, more maintenance work over recent years, but that simply patches things up without addressing this long-term crisis.
Is there any light at the end of the tunnel then for Calmac?
Well, the problem is that they don't own the ferries, but they've been promised those 2 new ferries from the Ferguson shipyard on the Clyde. But remember, those ferries are many years overdue. The big question is, will they appear on time? Calmac have also been promised 4 new ferries that are also being built for them, delivered, we're told, by the end of next year. They're being built in Turkey. Now, once all those ships arrive, fortunes may change for Calmac and for the island communities who've waited so long for a robust ferry service.
OK, David, for now, thank you. Now, a woman says she's been left traumatised by having to exhume and rebury her dad at Ayr Cemetery. 126 bodies had to be removed from the site after extensive flooding was discovered within layers there in 2022. Our reporter Hope Webb has more.
Caroline's dad, Norrie, died in 2018. It's been 6 years since she buried him, and just over a year since she buried him for a second time. Norrie's body and the bodies of 125 others had to be exhumed from Ayr Cemetery after it was found that graves there were completely waterlogged due to drainage issues.
You still get the bad dreams, takes your breath away sometimes. So regardless whether you have counselling or not, it's going to be there for the rest of our lives.
The problem was discovered in 2022 and work to restore the layers began that summer. In the meantime, though, bodies were taken from here to a hangar near Prestwick Airport and eventually reinterred one by one. That process concluded in December. Caroline is speaking out now as she says she feels traumatised by South Ayrshire Council's handling of the situation. Despite promises to meet all of their requests, Caroline says monetary limits were placed by the council on the purchase of new coffins and floral displays. And even when the time came to rebury her dad, she was horrified by the state of the cemetery.
It was just a building site. There was mud and muck all over his gravestone. The grave digger actually had water for his lunch and brought it over and helped us clean my dad's grave before we could rebury him.
The spokesperson said the council knows it has been an extremely distressing time for families and has been in regular contact with them. The statement goes on to say that where possible, the local authority has fully absorbed the cost of each family's requirements. But now even more families face the same agonising process. The local authority has identified 87 graves at Troon Cemetery, which are also 6 feet deep in water. Work has now begun there to repair the layers. 51 are occupied and will need to be exhumed. Some were buried as recently as late last year. Hope Webb reporting Scotland.
Caroline Sutherland in that report from Hope Webb there. Now, since the start of this week, Scotland's new hate crime laws have dominated the headlines. Let's just break down exactly what the new legislation covers. It creates a new crime of stirring up hatred relating to these protected characteristics. Incitement to racial hatred has been an offence for decades. Now, this law creates parallel offences for those other areas. The bar for these offences is high, and in order for material or behaviour to constitute an offence under the law, it must be both threatening or abusive and intended to stir up hatred. Now, supporters of the bill highlight the provisions around free speech, meaning people would not face criminal action for being rude or offensive, while the likes of misgendering someone, as the author J.K. Rowling did on social media this week when she said several transgender women were men, will not be prosecuted. Critics argue the law is resulting in a massive waste of police time, with them receiving more than 3,000 hate crime reports so far. With the latest on this story, here's our political correspondent, Andrew Kerr.
Go on. Be good to yourself. Don't feed the hate monster.
The hate monster was used to publicise the new laws. It was ridiculed in some quarters, partly fueling the public opposition. High-profile social media posts this week from the author J.K. Rowling on the transgender issue were ruled by police not to be criminal. The First Minister today criticised her tweets and said his policy got the balance right.
The examples of J.K. Rowling's tweets are a perfect example of that. Anybody who read the Act will not have been surprised at all that there's no arrests made, because J.K. Rowling's tweets may well be offensive and are, frankly, I can understand offensive, upsetting and insulting to trans people. It doesn't mean that they meet a threshold of criminality or being threatening or abusive and intended to stir up hatred.
Police control centres have been dealing with thousands of complaints. Police Scotland have said J.K. Rowling's posts will not be recorded as non-crime hate incidents. The Conservatives claim that's against Police Scotland policy and say they're making it up as they go along.
I don't believe this hate crime legislation is needed. I believe it's putting an undue burden on the police. I'd like to see it repealed, but we also need to see Police Scotland coming clean on what their policy now is on the recording of non-crime hate incidents.
Police Scotland wouldn't appear on camera today, but the Police Federation said rank and file officers were working hard. The trans community has been at the centre of the hate crime row, including one activist mentioned by J.K. Rowling.
And it's hell. You know, I've been sent videos of people loading shotguns saying, "This is for you," pictures of bullets, cartoons of trans women hanging themselves. Really gross, ghastly stuff. But unfortunately, that's what happens. And to me, taking that as a whole, that is clearly hate.
The First Minister seems relatively relaxed about the way the hate crime situation is progressing and has full confidence in Police Scotland. This political storm has blown in during the Easter parliamentary recess, and it looks like it will continue for some time though. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland at Bute House in Edinburgh.
And you can watch that full interview with India Willoughby on the 9 tonight with Fiona Stocker. That's on the BBC Scotland channel at 9 o'clock. Some of the day's other news now, and Nicola Sturgeon says she's veering away from voting in favour of assisted dying. Lib Dem MSP Liam MacArthur published a members' bill last month, and he says it includes robust safeguards. The former First Minister said she had rarely been as conflicted on any issue as I am on this. MSPs are expected to have a free vote on the matter. The First Minister, Hamza Yousaf, has already indicated he doesn't support the proposed legislation. Visitors will be able to see parts of Balmoral Castle used by the royal family for the first time this summer. Guided tours will be available from the 1st of July to the 4th of August before the King and Queen arrive for their summer break, with each group restricted to 10 people. A ticket costs £100 or £150 with the addition of afternoon tea. Now, Scotland could become the first part of the UK to ban egg companies from keeping chickens in cages. The Scottish Government's announced a new consultation on the issue. The use of battery cages was banned in the UK in 2012, but there are still more than 1 million chickens in Scotland kept in enriched cages, which provide birds with more room than the smaller battery cages. Ben Phillip has been to a chicken farm in Fraserburgh.
This farm in Aberdeenshire produces nearly 7 million eggs a week. Hens here are kept in enriched colony cages, which experts say provide birds with room to nest, roost and scratch. They replace the smaller and controversial battery cages, which were banned in the UK in 2012. Now the Scottish Government wants to go one step further and ban egg companies from using cages altogether.
Well, I think it's unnecessary, to be honest, because it's happening naturally anyway. You know, if you go back 10 years, the amount of caged eggs used to be around about 70% of the market. It's now half that and even less. And actually, if you're worried about the environment, actually a caged egg is best for the environment because its carbon footprint is lower. So, you know, there's arguments both ways, there really is. But, you know, I just feel the consumer should have the choice.
The Scottish Government's preference is for a complete ban on keeping birds in cages by 2034. It also proposes an unregulated option for shops and caterers to commit to stop selling and using eggs from birds in such cages in the same year. Scotland's National Farming Union says farmers invested in newer cages on the understanding there will be no further law changes. It's also concerned it could lead to more imported eggs from countries with potentially worse welfare standards.
The risk here is by banning this particular system of production, which is perfectly lawful, we are depriving the consumer of one system of production. We're depriving them of choice.
Eggs from free-range farms already account for a large proportion of what we buy in the supermarket. One animal rights group says cages are being banned in other countries too and welcomed the move.
Chickens are sentient animals. They have the ability to feel joy and happiness. They also have the ability to feel pain, stress, frustration, anger. And being kept in these cages restricts their ability to carry out their natural behaviours.
The Scottish Government believes banning cages would balance bird welfare and the sustainability of the laying hen sector. Ben Phillip, reporting Scotland, Aberdeenshire.
Now, they are the uninvited guest nobody wants in their home or garden. But rodents are a problem in our towns and cities. And today, a survey showed Glasgow had the highest number of residential pest control call-outs for rats and mice last year in Scotland. A nationwide report by an insurance company using council figures shows 743 rodent infestations are tackled every day in homes across the UK. And Glasgow City Council told BBC News the higher numbers weren't surprising, as it's the largest local authority in the country. Suzanne Allen spent the morning with pest controllers in the city.
Imagine putting the rubbish out and being greeted by this. Rats can live in our bins and feed off our waste. In Glasgow city centre, pest controllers Gemma and Ian are looking for infestations. They both see rodent numbers increasing.
You can see the excavations here that indicates there has been quite a lot of traffic coming through here. That's the earth has been disturbed as they've been coming and going.
So why would rats thrive in a place like this?
Rats need three things to survive. They need food, they need water, and they need harbourage, shelter, essentially. And they have all of that in abundance here.
There are many reasons why pest controllers like Gemma and Ian here say they think rat numbers are going up. It could be a decrease in bin collections, it could be poorly maintained buildings and drains, but mostly it's us and our behaviour.
If I go into like a back court in a tenement, for example, you see bin areas that are just a complete disaster. And I'm presuming people that live there think, well, why would we clean it up? Because it's just going to get bad again.
It's been a long time since we've seen an anti-littering campaign. People's behaviours are changing. People don't really care.
It's human behaviours that cause these problems.
Today's survey of councils found Glasgow had the highest number of residential pest control call-outs at over 5,000. North Lanarkshire was next with nearly 3,000, followed by Edinburgh with well over 2,000. This sinkhole was caused by rats living under the grass. It's next to a children's play park and school.
You can see the holes in the ground, and you can see that the ground level has actually sunk because of the extensive tunnelling that's been created by the rats underneath. You can also see quite a lot of litter, fly-tipped rubbish here. There's a lot of food, discarded takeaway food containers, some of which would have been dragged here by rats to feed.
Glasgow City Council told us these issues are being experienced throughout the UK, and the numbers here are not surprising, as Glasgow is the largest local authority in the country. Suzanne Allen, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
OK, I've never been more glad to see Amy in my life. Amy,
yes,
you are going, it really
was.
wasn't. You're up to Dundee tonight, first of all.
Yes, that's where we're starting. Thanks very much, Laura. Good evening. At the start of the season, many people may have thought Dundee's ambition would simply be to retain their top flight status. But with the split edging ever closer, Tony Docherty's men are now looking at the real possibility of a top 6 finish. The Dens Park side, who are currently occupying 6th place after a 2-1 win over St Johnstone, are preparing for 3 games in 8 days. Starting with Motherwell this weekend, and their manager is really pleased with the work ethic of the squad.
They're such a brilliant group to work with, you know, the staff, we're all agreed with that. Any challenges put ahead of them, be it this week, you know, the the conditions of the pitches and where they need to train. They just put their all into it, and they're such a brilliant group, and they're getting the rewards for the amount of work that they're putting in now. So I would say, answering your question, we're in a really good place. We're very confident, you know, but we're not getting complacent. We're not getting ahead of ourselves. It's the most important game's the next game, which is Motherwell on Saturday, and we're preparing for that with a really good training session just there. So very much good mood in the camp and look forward to the game.
Yeah, big week or so ahead for Dundee, and just staying with them. And last night we heard from young Levi Rennie and his mum after Levi had been struck on the head with a pyrotechnic thrown by someone in the Dundee end at McDermott Park during their match against St Johnstone on Saturday. Well, Levi was a special guest at Dundee's Gardyne Training Centre today and was at the top table with Tony Docherty with a message for the Dark Blues faithful.
See if he was here but in the building, who's your favourite player?
On back.
There you go. Everybody's answer. And what's your message, right? What's your message to the Dundee fans?
Dundee fans, keep supporting Dundee, come home and away, and that's basically it.
Brilliant. Well done.
Brilliant message from Levi there. Well, Kilmarnock manager Derek McInnes admits there would be a twinge of disappointment if his side were unable to secure a European spot this season. The Ayrshire side sit fourth in the Premiership after a 1-1 draw against Hearts at the weekend, secured a top 6 finish for Derek McInnes' men, who were battling relegation this time last year. Should they remain in that 4th spot, they would enter the 2nd qualifying round of the Europa Conference League next season.
It's good to secure top 6 with 2 games to go before the split, which is a brilliant achievement for the players. If we do our jobs the way we've done it over the last few months, if we do that again over the next couple of months, then we've got a chance to maybe get the club into Europe. And if we don't make Europe, then there will be a wee tinge of disappointment, and when there shouldn't be. But at the same token, it's there. It's 4th spot. It's the only position you can get for Europe. And to do that, we're going to have to do a lot of good work between now and the end of the season. We're going to have to win more games of football, and Saturday gives us another chance of that.
It's night and day from last season. The atmosphere and the buzz about the club, it makes such a difference that the pressure at the business end of the season now, we're looking forward, we're thinking what can we achieve rather than getting the job done, which obviously was important last season, but completely different atmosphere, and it's more enjoyable.
Yeah, Kilmarnock with so much still to play for. Well, we mentioned last night that Scotland's top swimmers are in London this week at the British Championships, trying to book a place in Team GB for this summer's Olympic Games. Well, University of Stirling's Ciara McInnes has booked her place in Paris with an outstanding performance in the 200-metre butterfly. There she is, overtaking the world champion Laura Stevens with her final few strokes and touching home in Olympic qualifying time. No wonder she looks so happy there. And you might remember Stornome's Cara Hanlon from yesterday's programme. Good news, she won her 200-metre breaststroke heat comfortably today and is in action again tonight in the final, but she'll need to swim almost 4 seconds faster to achieve the 2 minutes and 23 seconds Olympic qualifying time. Good luck to Cara. To curling, and defending world champions Scotland are in action against Japan just now in the World Men's Curling Championship in Switzerland. Earlier today, Bruce Mount's team won 6-3 against the Czech Republic to take their record in the round robin to 5 wins and 2 defeats. This shot by Bobby Lammy this evening suggests Scotland are on form, though they trail Japan 2-1 after 3 ends.
Just like that.
And you can see the rest of that match, Laura, over on the BBC Scotland website or on the app.
Brilliant, and you'll be following that this evening. And how nice was that to see Levi getting his moment at Dundee today?
You could just tell after the few days that boy has had to be sitting there with Tony Docherty in front of the press like that. That's a moment he'll remember.
Wonderful. Amy, thank you.
Thank you.
OK, we regularly report on the pressure on our health services, while in recent years we've also covered the explosion in artificial intelligence, or AI, which experts say is already changing our lives. Well, at Scotland's biggest hospital, they've started a trial using AI to speed up the reading of CT scans. Here's our science and innovation correspondent, Laura Goodwin.
As a major trauma centre, the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital provides care at a time when every second counts.
Right, we're just going through to CT1.
30% of patients in the emergency department here will require some sort of imaging. For head CT scans, demand is huge. It's estimated one is done in the UK every 90 seconds.
We see about 2/3 of the major trauma in Scotland that come through the site, either by helicopter, by ambulance or self-presenting, and therefore there's a significant load in the requirement to image these individuals. For the vast majority, that's a CT head as part of that, and therefore be able to, once they've gone through the scanner, to get that report back quickly to start thinking about the next stage in their treatment.
And that's where trained radiologists come in. But what if AI could speed up the process? The hospital is trialling a system called Cure, which has been trained to recognise signs of trauma in the brain and tells radiologists which scans to analyse first. The AI can also be a support tool for less experienced medics who at times may need to interpret scans.
So there's quite a lot of variance in terms of who is it within a hospital that looks at head CT scans, and what kind of support do they need, what are the things that could actually do with the second set of eyes, as well as where can AI bring the value of speed, for example.
Every single scan will still be viewed by a trained professional, but it's hoped using AI will improve efficiency. The clinical trial runs until July. Laura Goodwin, reporting Scotland.
OK, weather time now, and Judith's here on a very blustery beach there.
Isn't it lovely? That's where I started my surfing career. You're laughing. Come with me next time. Thank you very much, Laura. A very good evening to you. Well, with a lot of rain comes a lot of mud, as you can see there behind me. And what we've been seeing really is a succession of low pressure systems traipsing up across Scotland, bringing outbreaks of rain, windy conditions. Some respite tomorrow before the next one comes knocking on the door tomorrow night. Now, as far as tonight is concerned, the last of that low pressure system pulling away, taking the rain with it, the winds will ease. A legacy of clouds staying with us as we head through the overnight period. One or two spots of rain coming out of that thicker cloud across the north. Some clear spells in the west. It could be cold enough for a touch of frost and shelter. And as I say, winds will start to ease as we head through the overnight period. Still a fresh wind across the north. Into tomorrow, well, it's a drier day. Any bits and pieces of rain clearing away, although we'll see one or two spots across more northern parts of the country. And come the afternoon, there'll be a fresh breeze blowing over the Northern Isles, but there'll be some sunshine as well. And there'll be quite a fresh breeze for northern Scotland generally. Some spits and spots of rain coming out that cloud at times for northern and northeastern parts. The best of any sunshine will be found, or any brightness really, for the west coast. And the temperatures, yes, 6 to 8 degrees, but without the strong wind, it will feel better. So I'm glad to say we could see 9 or 10 down towards the southwest. So as we head into tomorrow evening, I think we'll see a bit more brightness coming through for the west, even further east as we head through the evening time. Then the next front approaches, bringing thicker cloud, outbreaks of rain, strengthening easterly winds. As that rain engages with the cold air across northern Scotland, readily turning to snow over high ground, some sleetiness to lower levels as well. That's with this first thing on Friday that does move away fairly quickly, becoming confined to the Northern Isles during the day. Quite a strong wind on Friday coming in from the east, with blustery showers following on, along with some brightness, and we'll start to see some milder air feeding up from the south as well, a sign of things to come. We are keeping our eye on this low pressure system, which is pulling up from the south Friday night into Saturday, bringing some strong winds, but also some very mild air. That's your forecast.
Thank you. A quick look now at tonight's main news again. The head of Calmac is stepping down with immediate effect. The ferry operator says it followed a review of his executive leadership, but campaigners say Robbie Drummond's been made the latest scapegoat in Scotland's ferry chaos. A woman says she's been left traumatised by having to exhume and rebury her dad at Ayr Cemetery. 126 bodies had to be removed from the site after extensive flooding was discovered within layers there in 2022. The Scottish Government's announced a consultation on banning egg companies from keeping chickens in cages. There are still more than 1 million chickens here kept in what are called enriched cages. I'll be here with your late news at 10:30. See you then. Bye-bye.